Welcome back to Financial Therapy. It's not just about the money. I'm personal financial planner, columnist, and financial therapist Rick Kaler. Research tells us that 90% of all financial decisions are made emotionally, not logically. For nearly 4 decades, I've been helping people make better money decisions. So what makes my financial worldview different from most financial experts? I blend the nuts and bolts of financial advice with the emotions that drive making them. Good money decisions are not just about the money. So let's get started with today's episode. Welcome back to another edition, and I am delighted to have as a guest today Rose Zeeland, and she is a pretty special person with a very unique passion. And I ran into Rose when she applied for a position that we had open with our firm. And long story short, joined both in person and as a virtual planner. And I just found her to be quite unique and lovely human being. So welcome, Rose.
Thanks, Rick. That was a wonderful introduction. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. And I didn't even have a script in front of me. So tell me a little bit about your story and how you grew into a passion for death and money.
Yes. So let's see where to start with the story. I guess I'll start with the present and then we can venture backwards. So I have a practice. My firm is called Golden Thread Collaborative, and my focus is on combining financial planning work as a certified financial planner and also a certified financial transitionist with end-of-life care as a death doula or an end-of-life doula. And specifically, I work with people in their 40s and 50s, primarily in Colorado, who have received a life-limiting illness or a potentially life-limiting illness. Like in the case of cancer, maybe they survive it, maybe they don't. But living in kind of that liminal state of not knowing what it looks like. And in all cases, these are individuals, midlife, mid-stride, and kind of T-boned with a diagnosis that they didn't ask for, they didn't want, and having to recalibrate very quickly. So my work helps with both the financial and logistical realms of the things that are changing with a diagnosis like that, as well as the emotional and the existential realms of dying too soon, and really helping individuals integrate those experiences, both on the technical side and the transcendental side of that life experience. So that's what I'm currently doing. How I arrived there starts approximately 25 years ago when I was a birth doula. I did that through college and a little while afterwards. And birth work was, when I discovered that, it was really the first time I'd ever felt a calling to do any particular type of work. So I trained as a birth doula. That was a really difficult career track to go into as an early 20-something because the 24/7 on-call lifestyle of a birth doula is incompatible with any other career.
Right.
So I eventually walked away from that and went more conventional tracks. I accidentally found myself in finance as a fallout from the Great Recession. I was doing what I refer to as the Great Recession hustle, which was anything and everything that was legal that somebody would pay me to do. Uh, and I eventually got so tired of that my standing joke was, I will do anything else but this. I'll sell insurance, anything but this. As like selling insurance is the next slightly least worst thing that I could do. And the week that I got really serious about that, I opened the newspaper. The only job opening in my small community was for an insurance agency. And I went, damn it. I just about it, and here it is. So I applied. Long story short, it ended up being one of those moments. There's a quote I found shortly after I took this job because it was kind of one of the first major identity shifts that I went through, going from birth work, nonprofit work, community organizing, sustainability work into insurance. And I found a quote, or it kind of found me, I guess, that said, if you're given an opportunity, take it. And if it changes your life, let it.
Mm,
And that
yes.
really helped me integrate the identity shift that I was going through at that time. But also, it opened up so many doors for me. I eventually left property and casualty insurance. I moved into financial advising with a major broker dealer. And I was beginning to think about shifting into the independent financial planning world. And then my dad died. So that was the piece that kind of brought the finance and the death together. Because I was with my dad when he passed. And the biggest reflection I had in the days and weeks after his passing was that that was one of the most magical experiences that I had ever witnessed,
Wow.
along with birth. And I was
Yeah.
also reflecting
Yeah.
on how
Mm.
how same birth and death are, just different. And in the months following my dad's estate and taking care of all of that, I happened to be talking to a retired hospice nurse, or excuse me, hospice doctor. And I was telling her about, I think birth, death are the same thing, except different. I said, there should be death doulas. And she said, there are. And I said, what? And so I looked into it immediately and I was just taken aback. And I had, like the second time in my life, a sense of a calling. First time was with birth work, the second time was with death work. And I thought, this is really what I want to do. And then I was like, but I'm a financial planner. How can I be a death doula? I took some time off after my dad passed, and that's when I had this moment of clarity where it's like, I want to be a CFP death doula. I want to put them together. I want to intentionally do death work and financial work together. So I took a training to become a death doula in 2023. I've been volunteering for hospice since then and then launching this business. So here we are. That's kind of the story of how I got to here.
Yeah. It's just fascinating when you said that the birthing process and that the dying process had so many similarities.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering if you could say more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, on the birth side of it, one of the things that you see in the labor process of bringing a baby into the world is that it's kind of a process of cycles ramping up in their intensity. And in death, it's a process of cycles winding down in their intensity. So there's kind of a symmetry with those two things. Also, I think it's important to name that, I mean, we call the birth process labor because it's recognized as work. The female body is going through a tremendous amount of effort, and the fetus is actually shown to be going through its own effort in order to come into the world. And the parallel with the labor that a dying body does is present as well, because
Mm,
it's there's labor in dying. And I think it actually is a really important reframe to think of the dying process
mm,
as a labor, because it's work on the person, on the part of the person who is passing and the physiological processes that are ending there, the pain that can sometimes, not always, be associated with that, the emotional and psychological adjustments that need to be made. But then also in both birth and death, the circle of care that surround the person who is birthing or dying are also impacted and involved in the labor of both of those processes as well. And so understanding the dynamics of the labor of birthing and dying and understanding the dynamics that's asked of the circle of care is a really important way to think about end of life. And I think that that is it's a nuance that isn't talked about very often. Instead, it's something that is we're afraid of. But just like birth is a biological natural process, death is a biological natural process as well. And when we think of it in a different way, I think it can help to take away some of the fear.
I have never thought about that, to your point,
Hmm.
especially the labor part of coming in and going out and the circle of care.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's astounding. And I'm jumping right to how money would touch both of those.
Hmm. Yeah. There are many, many layers to this. One is looking probably at the highest level is systemically at the way that money or absence of money impacts the choices that are available to a birthing person or a dying person. And those choices are often dictated by class, by race, by gender, sexual orientation. There's, a lot of factors. There's a lot of intersectionality is the term that describes all of these positions of privilege or disadvantage. And the way that somebody's intersectionality shows up in birth and death and the healthcare system, which is very much skewed towards caring for a certain slice of the demographics, which tends to be people in positions of privilege, that's going to largely influence the outcomes of both birth and death. Looking at on the birthing side, well, I guess on both the birth and the death side, who has access to pain care, pain management, who is believed in their pain declarations, who is given an opportunity to have an advocate for their needs, who is given the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to be heard. So, money at a very high level is going to be influencing core foundational experiences that we have at the beginning and ending of life. One thing I'll say at the end of life, hospice, fantastic organization, fantastic service. It was born out of a mindset and a practice that is in service to a specific demographic. And it continues to be. It's changing and evolving and broadening, but it continues to be an organization and a service that is catered more towards white, middle to upper class, and historically Christian as well. And anybody who falls outside of that paradigm is not well served by the biases and the resources that are offered by hospice care. Again, that's shifting, so I don't want to say that that is categorically true, but that
Mm-hmm.
is where it was born from. And born from there are vestiges of it still. So there's a lot of work in the death care movement to broaden the access and the conversation and expose the biases that are present and have conversations around those to make healthcare, death care related conversations more accessible and equitable for all.
I like your framing on death care.
Hmm.
I've also never thought of that.
Hmm.
Healthcare, yeah, we talk
Sure.
about that a lot, but we don't
Yeah.
talk a lot about death care.
Right.
And to your point, we don't talk a lot about death in our
Hmm.
society.
No.
It wasn't too long ago that a death cafe came to Rapid City.
Hmm.
I don't know if I mentioned that to you or not, but I went to it. Just like you can have that conversation in Rapid City. Are you kidding me? Yeah. And it was fascinating to me. There wasn't too many people that showed up, maybe, I don't know, half dozen
Hmm.
people showed up. And it hasn't received any legs here. It was a one and done so far.
Hmm.
But just having that conversation was just phenomenal.
Hmm.
And I assume that you've heard of death cafes, and there may even be one where you live.
Yeah, they're everywhere. That's a national organization, a loose affiliated network of individuals who are promoting more death literacy and death positive conversation and hoping to help to take away some of the fear that many of us feel around something that is mysterious. And it's interesting, the relationship that we have between fear and death. And a lot of it has to do with death has become something that's very far removed from what we see or do on a daily basis for most people. And I think that that's part of it. It's not something that, most of us through the course of our lives will be touched by death at some point, but it's typically not a high volume experience.
Right. Like
Meaning,
birth.
yeah, yeah, because, birth is,
Although you can birth 4 or 5 babies, but
sure.
you're still only going to die once.
You only die once, but also, your parents pass typically before you do. Hopefully, your siblings, depending on the birth order of things, you may pass before your siblings or they might
Right,
pass
right.
before you.
Yeah.
But it's typically older generations, and there's something that makes the passing of an elder easier to metabolize than the
Yeah.
passing of somebody who is midlife or younger, in part
Yes.
because, well, they lived a full life. They had a whole trajectory, which I don't know. I mean, yes, there's an element of truth to that, but it's also not necessarily fair because there's a lot of people, there are a lot of elders who still feel that they're mid-stride in their life, that they are not ready, that they still have things that they want to do. And then there are others who are very ready and can't wait to go see their spouse or their parents or other people who they have lost before them, and depending on what their belief framework is about what's waiting for them on the other side. So, yeah, I think it's unfair to say that all old people are ready to die. It's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Now,
Yeah.
the clients that you're working with, I
Hmm.
think I heard you say are mainly in their 40s and
40s and
50s.
50s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's generally anybody that's pre-retirement age is the dying too soon crowd, where most people would agree that this is too soon to be happening. And it is a demographic of people who, for the most part, are all willing and able to acknowledge that I'm going to die someday, but someday is decades in the future. And getting a diagnosis that is terminal or potentially terminal is just like getting T-boned. It's just out of the blue. This is not what we planned for. There was a vague acknowledgement that this could happen, but not to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to make up a story right now that's a more challenging demographic to work with.
There are very unique challenges with that demographic. Yes. On the financial side, unlike retirement age and beyond, the nest egg hasn't necessarily been built. And so the resources, again, and because the resources that are available determine the options that are available at end of life, that becomes an interesting dynamic to navigate. So doing an assessment of the cash flow. Like, now we're not working because we have a diagnosis, we're too sick, we're dealing with treatments. Spouse or partner or primary caregiver may be working less as well to
Yep.
help with the illness and everything that's going on. So here's a time where the expenses are increasing, income has decreased. How do we reposition whatever resources are available in order to cover those gaps? How do we leverage potentially the network in order to do that? So on the financial side, the topics that I work with most are related to cash flow, insurance, and estate planning. And assessing all of those things, gathering all of the resources, figuring out what's available, what's missing, and how can we leverage and reposition all of those for the circumstances. But the psychological and emotional side of it also presents its own challenge, because this is a demographic that is often it's the sandwich generation in many cases.
Yep.
So
Right.
many people have young kids or recently launched kids who are in early
Mm-hmm.
adulthood, and also elder parents as well, and potentially siblings or other special needs people in their family who they might be caring for as well. So now the person who had been caregiving in various capacities is now needing to receive care and may be taken out of that family system as well. So how do we readjust and recalibrate all of those relationships when they had been the circle of care for other people, but now they need a circle of care around them? So mapping all of that and figuring out how those dynamics are shifting and changing, and a lot of the work is about learning how to say no and also how to say yes. So what are we letting go of, and how are we allowing ourselves to receive help and care?
There's so much in this. I mean, we could talk for 5 hours
Uh-huh.
uh, of going from the caregiver to the care receiver.
Hmm.
What a shock. And to your
Hmm.
point, it's like, yeah, this wasn't supposed to happen to me.
Hmm.
And on the financial thing, there's something that hit me because when I think about doing financial planning for someone who is terminal, I'm thinking you said there was three things that you were planning for: the current budget, the estate, and what was the third one?
Insurance.
Insurance. Okay.
Yeah.
And so my mind would go immediately to the estate planning and the insurance.
Hmm.
But you laid out something that is in real time, and that's how do I afford the dying?
Hmm.
Because to your point, you have a spouse that may be the main caretaker who is now working less, or it's impacting that cash flow. You probably have lost the cash flow maybe of the
Mm-hmm.
person who is terminal
Mm-hmm.
or will at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to something you said earlier about having the money to afford an advocate and how desperately an advocate is needed in this process.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like financial planning on steroids. They don't teach you this in CFP school.
No, I don't teach you this in CFP school. No.
Wh- What what are the I mean, I see the challenges. It's uh, there's just so much happening here. And then for you as the CFP to have the emotional skills to be present and to quote hold the space, which
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the people listening to this will understand and some won't,
Mm-hmm.
of just having the bandwidth of being able to show up
Mm-hmm.
and having done your work around death and dying so
Mm-hmm.
that you can really be present in the room
Mm-hmm.
and not being triggered
Mm-hmm.
with what's going on. Am I getting this?
You're nailing it. Yeah. Yeah. Can I elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yes, please do.
Yeah. So one of the things, this is an insight that came to me fairly recently, and it has really helped me shift and understand the roles that I carry and the way that I interact with people. So there's this continuum, and on the one end, we have the financial planning and advising role that I am asked to do, or that any financial planner is asked to do. It's a position where we are literally paid to tell people what to do. We are literally paid to give them advice and direction. There's agenda, there are outcomes. Our industry regulates that there are deliverables that are measurable, right? And on the other end of that continuum is death doula work, which is entirely agenda-less. That work is about holding space, like you said. It's about witnessing the person who's dying and their circle of care in however they're showing up and holding space for that. It's just acting as a container and a witness. That is the role of a death doula,
Mm,
as well as providing education around death and dying, the physiological process, the options that are available, once it's communicated what that person's desires are, being an advocate for that person's desires. That's the role, but it's very, very, very exclusively led by the person who's dying in their circle of care.
mm, mhm,
In the middle of that is kind of a coaching construct where coaching at its finest and highest practice is relatively agendaless. The only agenda and aim of coaching is to help the individual who has this goal to decide and uncover what is in the way of being able to achieve that goal and helping that person figure out what needs to shift in order to move forward with it. That's the objective. But again, it's very much led by the individual who's asking for coaching. So this is kind of this continuum from very agenda outcome driven perspective to an agenda-less witnessing role. That's a big dichotomy to hold. And I come at my work from the perspective of, so I do, unlike traditional financial planning, I don't do long-term relationships, in part because I'm working with people who don't necessarily have a long-term time horizon, but also because I'm there in this moment, in this pivot point in their life to help stabilize and land on their feet again from this major crash that has just happened, and recalibrate and to assess and to find a way forward. But I work in conjunction with other financial planners. Ideally, my client already has a financial planner so that that planner can maintain their zone of genius, which they're best at is giving the advice and having the agenda. And I speak their language, but I can show up as
right.
more of the doula role in the agenda less witness, contain, educate, advocate. Because I speak the financial language, as I discover things, I can discover where the problems are. And when it's appropriate, and if the client is ready, then I can start to educate and advocate and move things in that direction. But otherwise, it's a relationship with the financial planner to say, oh, we found this. And I'm going to help the client hopefully arrive at a place of readiness to be able to deal with this. Because that's one of the biggest disconnects I see is that, you working with any one of your clients, if they came in and said, we just got this diagnosis, all the alarm bells are going off in your brain about, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to like the checklist is 3 pages long before that conversation is over. And you are ready to drive into action and to get things going and get meetings with the attorneys and do all of the things. It's part of our fiduciary responsibility to our clients. That client is likely not ready to do any of it. The harder you drive to try and get this really important list of things done, the further away that they're going to go. So I'm the bridge between those two spaces.
I just wrote that down.
Yeah.
You're serving as the bridge.
Yeah.
And what a great bridge for a planner. And just to say what you said, I have a client, it's terminal, it's dying. I'm probably as freaked out as emotionally as they may be. I'm focusing on the to-do list, the financials, boom, 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 boom. It's kind of like I see myself back when emotion would get out in the room and I'd say, how about that mutual fund chart on the wall? Let's talk about that.
That's my safe place.
That's right. And what an opportunity for someone to be able to come to you, someone being a planner. It could, of course, be the client, but the planner to say, Rose, would you step in here and be that bridge so that I can focus on the dollars and the cents and everything, and you can be assisting me in that, and we can be collaborating while you're there helping the client as part death doula, part financial planner with her eyes and ears open to what needs to be attended to here and communicating what needs to be done in terms and timing that the client can understand. Does that get it?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And the only thing I would add to that is that there's the coaching component as well, because I mean, let's just name that money is hard. I mean, you co-invented financial therapy because money is hard.
It is hard.
And death is also hard. And now we have to do 2 hard things at the same time. And so there is a need and a readiness for people to work on getting right with their thoughts around money and their thoughts around death. And that's kind of that coaching piece as well, is helping with the thought work and the open inquiry and the let's work through these pieces, because that's part of the readiness that allows somebody's nervous system to regulate enough to be able to do this technical work on the other side. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Rose, we're going to have to leave it there. We are out of time. Can you believe it? There's so much more to say. Maybe we can get you to come back for another episode. People find you.
Yeah, best way to find me is on my website. It's deathandmoney.com. I am also on LinkedIn, and I have a newsletter. You can sign up for that on my website as well. It's called Threads of Insight. It goes out 1 to 2 times a month, and various essays and articles about money, meaning, and mortality.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Rose, thank you so much for being here. This is a rich one. So many ways to go. Thank you. And will you come back sometime?
I would love to, Rick. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thanks for joining me, Rick Kaler, for another episode of Financial Therapy. It's not just about the money. This is where I combine the nuts and bolts of financial advice with the emotions that drive making them. Remember, every financial behavior, whether it appears illogical to you or others, makes perfect sense when we understand the underlying beliefs, feelings, and thoughts. Sign up for my weekly blog at financialawakenings.com. I hope you'll join me again for our next episode.